And welcome back to the CODESHO podcast,
Hey, what's
everybody.
going on?
So we've been talking about this topic for a while. We're actually going to talk about it
Wait,
several episodes ago.
we originally were going to talk about it with Patrick, and I think we introduced it the episode slightly before.
Yeah, we kind of derailed with Patrick though.
Yeah.
Anyways, the thing that we want to talk about a little bit is imposter syndrome. I definitely want to post this link to this podcast on the Reddit, the subreddit that I follow. There's an iOS programming one, and there's also like a learn programming one.
Mhm.
And I follow these, and I'm always on there talking to these new developers. And it's generally like the subreddits are super encouraging, and the senior developers will go on there and just try to spread all sorts of encouragement and whatever. There's only so much you can say in a comment though.
Yeah.
So like having a chance to talk about it for a little bit. I think we're going to be about an hour on this episode. I don't know. Hopefully it'll be helpful. There's a lot of benefits to imposter syndrome, but it's really tough when you're in the middle of it. And to some extent, it's something that really never goes away. Like, you know what I mean?
I think it's a personality type, maybe. Like Jocko says he never had imposter syndrome. He's like, I don't feel that.
Did he say that?
Something like that. I don't remember his exact quote, but he said it just wasn't his personality type.
Interesting.
Yeah. Like, so I think it's so what. Like, do we want to like roughly define imposter syndrome? I think it's just feeling like a fake, like feeling like when you get a job or you've reached a point and you're worried that people are gonna figure out that the fake that you really know that you are. That's that feeling. So.
Well, I was just going to say, so that's obviously like the symptom. The symptom is that you feel fake. You feel like people are going to call you on your bluff or whatever. Like you feel like people are going to recognize that you're not as talented or capable as you've led them on to be. But I think that comes from like I said, that's the symptom. But where I think this comes from is that I don't know, if you're a brand new engineer, the thing you want more than anything is to be at that senior role. You want to be involved in conversations with people. And so you kind of put yourself out there a little bit, right?
Okay, yeah.
And I don't know, maybe there are people that don't ever feel this way. Maybe you just have this crazy amount of confidence going into any conversation. But like, confidence or not, somebody's going to figure it out one way or another if you're not as talented as you led them on to be. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is I don't think it's bad to put yourself out there and get yourself involved in conversations, but I think there's a healthy way to do it in a way that that isn't genuine. You know what I mean? Let's circle back to this. Go ahead and make the point you were going to make, but I guess all that I'm trying to say is it comes from trying to put yourself out there, but there's a way to still put yourself out there without actually developing that imposter syndrome and feeling like a fraud.
Yeah,
Let's circle back to that though.
So I forget the exact point that I was going to say, but I guess Jocko was talking about the personality types, and I guess I agree with you. It does seem that it's about putting yourself out there, and maybe it's something that you're promoting yourself as. So because it doesn't have to be, or maybe it is. Maybe it is just some people have so much confidence, which is definitely true. I've met people, engineers or not, they have. Actually, I met a guy one time who was like the opposite of imposter syndrome. I forget what we met, like at a CPR group or something like that. I had to take CPR for like a job I had, and then like we met, and he seemed cool, and so like we were having a party that night, so we invited him over to a party, and like he came over early because he didn't have anything else to do, so we just hang out. Me and my buddy, also a coworker. We sat down, like we happened to have a chessboard at the house. We were a bunch of nerds, but nobody's like great at chess, right? It was more just like decoration. So we sat down. He's like, "Hey, do you guys want to play chess?" I am not good at chess, and I go, "I'm not bad, but I'm not. I mean, I guess it depends. I'm not good at chess." Let's say, right? So we sit down. I go, "Yeah, sure." I said, "I'm not very good." He goes, "Okay." No, maybe I didn't say that, but he goes, "Ready to lose?" And I go, "Oh yeah, I guess it doesn't. It matters to me like not at all because I just don't care." And he was so bad. Like it was like doing things where like I don't know what, like after like 5 or 8 moves, I had captured his queen, and I was just like, is he baiting me into a trap? That's how I'm not good at chess, but I was just like, well, this seems obvious. Like and I didn't see it as a trick, and I just dominated him. That's too harsh. But like, the whole point was that's the opposite, where it's just like, I
Yeah.
don't know if he was joking or but he was just like, not even, like, he wasn't bragging about it, but the way he said ready to lose was just like,
Ready to
he
lose.
thought he was so good. And like, that's to me, that's what leads, like, when you present yourself as so good, that's what leads to that.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't have something to back it up.
Yeah, it's actually so funny that you brought up that story because I have a very oddly similar story where when I was like, I'm gonna say I was like 12 or 13 maybe, I was super good at Guitar Hero. Um, and I thought
A
I was,
worthy skill.
yes, I thought I was super good, but I had a friend, his name was Brian, and he was way better than even me. And so like that's healthy for somebody to have. Circle back to that, but it's healthy, I think, to have somebody better than you so that you know you're not the best or whatever. But anyways, he was really good, but I knew that I was really good. I was still really good. He was just a little bit better. And I went to Six Flags, and for some reason that day, the guy that held like the Guinness Book of World Records, whatever, for Guitar Hero was there. He was like this super good guy. Back then, everybody knew who he was when Guitar Hero was like the thing. Anyways, so they were having a competition to see if people could go up and beat him at whatever song they wanted. You pick the song and you see if you could beat this guy. But before you do that, you have to go play somebody else. It was like a qualifier thing.
Okay.
Like they're not going to just send everybody up there. There's too many people.
Yeah.
So they'll have you like face off against maybe one or two people before you go up there, and they'll kind of see if you're actually good or not before whatever. So anyways, so I had one qualifier round before I went to go play against this guy, and it was this guy that was like 30 years old, and I mean, I just thought he was gonna crush me, like, cause he was just super confident. Like he was like, "You could pick the song, I have no problem. You could pick the song, I'm gonna destroy you," and blah blah. And I'm like a 13-year-old kid, and this 30-year-old man is like, "I'm gonna destroy you."
That's pretty funny.
And I'm just sitting there like, dang, I am going to get blown out. Like, I was like, I'm at Six Flags. Like, there's all sorts of talent here. There's probably, I don't know what I was thinking. Anyways, this guy goes up, and like you said, he was just awful. I mean, I crushed this guy. And it was so cool because it was like on this stage in a really busy walkway. And everybody sees this guy kind of hyping himself up. So everybody kind of like starts to look. They see this little 13-year-old kid and this 30-year-old man. And so we get this little crowd together. And when I start just destroying him, I got this whole crowd watching me, and then everybody gets super excited to see me actually play the Guinness Book of World Records guy, because I realized like this guy's really good, and I was really good. They brought the radio station out. The radio station was there to talk. It was super cool. It was a super awesome situation, and I went up there and I did play the guy. I didn't beat him. I was really close though. The Guinness Book of World Records. Yeah, because I picked a song that I knew I could ace 100%.
Okay.
It was like it was "Sweet Child of Mine" by Guns N' Roses. I knew I was super good at that song, so I played him in that. And I knew I could get 100%. And at the very, very end, I missed a note. And it was like one that was stupid. Like I shouldn't have missed it. It wasn't even in a hard section of the song. And for those that know Guitar Hero, you lose your multiplier and it's over.
I see, yeah.
And he did get 100%. But I was leading him because I had my star power at the right. Whatever. I'm derailing. But the point was that like I felt like this guy before the Guinness Book of World Records guy, I'm like, he's gonna show everybody that I'm just because I could play on expert. I knew that there was some songs that I could ace, but I just thought the world was way better than me. And then as it turns out, I was pretty dang good. But it's funny because like the same situation, this older guy was like, "I'm gonna destroy you. You could pick the song."
I think actually, I think that imposter syndrome can be a good thing, and we can talk about those benefits, like the article that we read. But like, I think the difference is maybe ego and confidence, even, right?
Yeah.
Like obviously, like the person who has too much ego, ready to lose, or "I'm gonna destroy you," they might actually be that good, but like
9 times out of 10, they're not gonna be.
Yeah. Whereas like you coming in, you felt like you were pretty good, but you also recognize that the world is much bigger. So you think, well, okay, I haven't played against these other people. So there's confidence and humility there, and I think that's why I think it's a good thing. But you said you had like another topic you wanted to transition into, like related to that.
Well, okay, before we transition into that,
Okay.
It seems like more often than not, when you do have a genuinely super talented person, they don't have a bunch of ego, and they are usually pretty humble, and they're not gonna like if the most talented guy in the world is not going to like go around flexing on everybody saying
Yeah.
like how good he is.
Yeah.
And I think actually in one of his episodes, Jocko, this is a little bit unrelated, but it is kind of related. Jocko was basically saying that I think he was telling a story about like a drunk guy on a road or something that, or maybe like some drug addict or something that was, he was walking his son. I'm trying to remember the story. He was walking his son down the sidewalk or something. And this guy was like all going crazy. I'm going to whoop your whatever, Jocko, this and that. And Jocko was just like, I know that I could put this guy in a pretzel knot in half a second. So like, I just have,
Yeah.
I do not need to flex on this guy. I don't care. I'm going to destroy this guy. If he really tries to come after me, like I'm going to jack him up. But this guy, he's not as talented as me. I know he's not. And it shows because he's sitting here trying to flex on me right now. So I guess what I'm wondering,
to a 13-year-old, by the way, like I think there's some massive ego there if a 30-year-old is trying to flex on a 13-year-old.
oh, in my situation,
In your situation,
Yeah.
there's something.
yeah, there's something weird going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what that. Yeah, I don't know what that is. But I guess what I'm wondering is I'm less worried about, as far as this topic goes. I don't really care much about the egotistical maniac, not super talented person. What I want to focus on is why are talented people not egotistical? Is it because, like, okay, if I actually worked with a super talented programmer at my last job, and this guy was crazy humble. He would never question, like if you made a direct statement to him, like if you said this is how this thing should be, he would be like, and I think you're the same way for the most part. He would just be like, "Oh, interesting. Like, let me look into that or whatever." Even if you were a junior day one on the job, like this guy would listen to you. He wouldn't just be like, "Oh, you're an idiot. That's not true. I know what I'm talking about." He wouldn't do that. He'd be like, "Oh, interesting. Never thought about that before." Because in his mind, he's like, "I'm not going to try to change your mind right now." I think at least this is what he's thinking. I'm not going to try to change your mind right now. You saying that is not going to change my mind. I'm going to have to do some research and determine whether or not I think that's true. But anyways, I just thought that was cool, and I'm just wondering, where does that come from?
So I wonder if we're looking at it like, oh, super talented people are very humble, and maybe it's the opposite. Like maybe we're thinking, why are super talented people so humble?
Why are humble people so talented?
Well, maybe it comes from the fact that, because if I'm humble, or like if you're Guitar Hero or whatever, like I'm gonna go into the situation learning. So like I know that I'm not the best programmer. There's people like Robert Martin and Bjorn Strustrup, the guy who invented C++. Like the list is super high, right?
Yeah.
Linus Torvalds, like the people who have built amazing stuff, and I go, wow, they're so much smarter than me, right? And so I don't think that I rank directly below Bill Gates or Steve Wozniak. Okay, well, I'm not Steve Wozniak, but I'm like just one notch below. So the fact is, I think it is related to your 13-year-old self, where you realize the world is bigger, right? So especially if you've read some of this stuff, you know very much how much you don't know. And like once you realize that, hopefully, again, this is that difference between ego and confidence. But I think that is that piece. And so because you realize that, so I think it starts with being a somewhat humble person, which is maybe these are the people who have imposter syndrome. So then you go in and then you ask those questions. You go, oh, that's interesting. Why would you do it that way? And then what do you get? You already have all of your knowledge, and then hopefully you get this person's knowledge, and this person's knowledge, and this person's knowledge.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if it comes again from being humble first, recognizing that there's more to learn and actually trying to learn it.
Yeah. I mean, and to your point about even the junior dev asking, like, why do you think that way or whatever, I think if you're a senior developer, one thing that makes senior developers so valuable to a company and so talented in general is recognizing the flaws that less talented people make. Because if you're in a senior role, like you're trying to clear roadblocks for everybody below you. And so it's important to realize, like, where do these people get steered wrong? What problems?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like if a junior developer says like, oh, you should do this thing to a senior developer, if he's humble, he'll just say like, okay, interesting. Let me learn why you think this way. And if you are wrong, that's going to open my eyes to some path that led you astray. And that's important.
Yeah. Or maybe as a senior developer, you've made that mistake before.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
But that person's going to respect you a bunch more and be way more willing to come talk to you if you don't just shut him down and be egotistical.
Yeah.
But kind of rewinding a little bit, I think that the point that you started to make is a really good one, which is like maybe people are asking the wrong question. Instead of saying, why are talented people so humble? It's probably the other way around. Why are humble people so talented? Because it usually is that way. Like that's kind of the point that I was trying to indirectly make is I don't think it's a situation where talented people develop this like humble skill set. Like it's kind of the other way around. Like if you're a humble person by nature, I think that skill will follow.
Yeah.
Because it's way easier for you to take an objective approach to the world, listen to people, lean on the experience of other people. And 9 times out of 10, people are very willing to help you with something that they know if you'll be receptive to it. So I don't know.
Yeah. So here's my exact example of that. And again, I don't think I'm an expert. The 2 times in my life, although I feel it at every single job, but the 2 times in my life I felt it the biggest. And this is even related to your first point, putting yourself out there. One was being a teacher, but it was the same thing as when I started writing that book, right? And so writing a book is very much putting yourself out there.
Yeah, that's got to be a real. Writing a book has got to be. You got to do a lot of self-reflection, I think.
Because like even as I'm writing it, again, like the question is, who am I to write a book? I'm not Martin Fowler or whatever.
Well, and that is that imposter syndrome.
That was exactly that. I was feeling that, and so, I came at it. So I'm putting myself out there. I'm imagining all of the 1-star reviews on Amazon, assuming anybody reviews it at all, which actually I don't think they have. But it was very much that imposter syndrome, and all I kept thinking, I was thinking 2 or 3 things. 3 things. One, okay, don't try to come at this exactly as an expert, right? Because I'm not an expert like these other people I've mentioned before, but I'm knowledgeable, and I could pass it down to the people behind me. And at the time I was a teacher, so I did have students, and there was a bunch of design patterns books. There was only one design pattern book for games, right? And it's a good book actually. I was just thinking, okay, well, what kind of book would I have wished I had when I was first starting out? So I want to give that to my students. So I was like narrowing my focus, and that way I can act as not exactly an expert, but like, instead of coming like, hey, I'm the expert, respect me, it's like, hey, how can I pass on my knowledge? So again, that's me trying to be humble. 2, what can I learn from this? Because I had read some of the books, like some of the authors, like the key books in this field before, like design patterns, but I didn't read all of them. And so I don't know if you can read all of them, but for researching this book, I read a ton. And I was like, okay, I'm going to gain a bunch of knowledge from this. So let me help other people. Let me also gain knowledge so I don't feel like that imposter. And then the third one was the thing that helped me get past or like push through that imposter syndrome the most. It doesn't matter what the reviews are. It doesn't matter if anybody reads it. I'll have a book on my resume. Like this is my experience basically. I'm going to do this thing even if nobody likes it. Like you can't take that away from me. So this will be my achievement.
Yeah.
And so like instead of focusing on like the whole world, just focus on, okay, cool. Like I'm going to do this thing. I wrote a book. And so I think it was those 3 things that at least helped me push past it.
Did you say anything in the book that you weren't absolutely certain of?
No. I mean,
and I think that's where a lot of this stems from. People having imposter syndrome, because I think that I've felt it before. I know I felt it before, and I've definitely said things before in conversation that I wasn't absolutely certain of, and that's where you really become vulnerable.
Oh yeah.
So, and at least like with your book situation, I think that if you only said things that you know to be true, then you have nothing to worry about.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. Here's the hard part. Because the thing is, actually, I wrote a game engine for the book, Like I already had like a large portion of it, but I wrote this game engine for the book. So I know that it all works.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, working, so it's like I know it to be certain that this thing works.
Yeah.
The thing about programming in general and solutions, and this is where, because things aren't just black and white, it works or it doesn't work. It's like there's gradations, or like people will say like, well, this approach sucks.
This could have been better over
This
here.
could have been better. Yeah, it's like, of course it could have been. So it wasn't that anything wasn't true, but there was still that fear of like, and I had my buddy at Microsoft like look over the code, and he actually did help. Like he like picked apart some of the engine pieces and said like this should be fixed or whatever.
Yeah.
So like
after it was published?
No, that was he was one of the reviewers.
Oh, okay.
Editors, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I guess the point that I was trying to make about only saying things that you're certain of is even if we look at something like subjective, like your engine, your game engine, there's a way for us to look at that and say, well, we can still only say true things about this, even though your approach was subjective. Like whether or not this was the best way to do it doesn't really matter. That doesn't make our conversation about it or what you said about it any less true. You can still talk and like, I guess that's the thing is like when you're talking about the engine in the book, you can say like, I mean, you can talk about this aspect of it, this design pattern that you use, this architecture that you used over here, and that can still be true. And I guess like, I'm trying to come up with a good example. Maybe it's kind of like what we're talking about at work lately, which is that I'm going to say we've been criticizing each other's architecture a little bit.
The dependency injection versus singletons?
Yeah, that a little bit.
Yeah.
But just as a whole, just everything that we've been talking about. I think I've been more critical of yours than you have been of mine, and mine is very open to criticism. I did not write my code in a super testable way earlier on, so now we're fixing that. And that was partially just because we had to move quickly.
Yeah.
But that's also not an excuse. I don't even want to say that because that's really not a good excuse to not write good code. Anyways, when we talk about your architecture decisions in the project, there's a way for you to talk about it and be open to criticism and also take an honest look at what you wrote.
Yeah.
But still not say anything that's not true. I mean,
Yeah.
because like when we talk, it's not like you've ever said anything that was blatantly false.
Yeah.
What you said is true. It's just a matter of taking all of the truths that we do know about these decisions and figuring out if they make the most sense.
Here's the key. I think like the one word that is the key in our discussion or whatever when it's subjective. What are the trade-offs? And when we talk about it, we do talk about the trade-offs. And that's where like, and I think that we're both really good because we don't necessarily have like a ton of ego about it. I think my way is better, or you think your way is better, or like we know actually we talk about this. There's got to be something in the middle that we can do. So the fact is that we're talking about trade-offs because really computer science is all about trade-offs, like the speed versus memory. Every interview question, like you can solve it multiple ways, and that's not everyone. Some of them are stupid tricks, and there's one tricky way to solve it. But like in general, the questions are, how would you solve this thing? And like is it like, well, we could do it multiple ways. Are we worried about speed or are we worried about memory?
Yeah.
Right. Or like, is there a good balance or something like that? So I think it's those trade-offs and knowing those trade-offs or just acknowledging that there could be trade-offs.
Yeah.
Helps you to be a little bit more humble.
Yeah. And not saying with seeming certainty that that what you're doing is correct. Like I've seen, like people that do tutorials and stuff online. I've never seen somebody that was like a genuine tutorial person, like a genuine teacher, whatever. I've never seen them just get railed for making a wrong decision in a tutorial. People will mention it, but like, I don't know if some guy uses a bad sort or something. Like in the comments, somebody's going to say something about it.
Could have done this sort faster.
You could have done, this sort would have been better. But as long as he wasn't in there saying the bubble sort is the best sort for large amounts of data, like
definitely is.
Obviously, definitely is. He didn't say that. Like he used it, and maybe that was a mistake. But as you can still, I guess the whole point I'm trying to make is you can do the wrong thing or make a poor design decision. but not speak about it as if it were truth, which then opens you up to imposter syndrome and criticism and this and that.
Yeah.
Like, just only say what you know to be true.
Or like, I think this goes back to one of the things that you said directly, or you said earlier. What was it? Like your attitude going in. So if you go in willing to learn, like I think one of the fears of imposter syndrome, and I kind of mentioned that, is like let's say you're a new dev at a company and you're worried that they're all going to spot you as a fake. Well, yeah, don't go into the meeting, like you said, don't go into the meeting saying stuff that you are unsure about. But yeah, like have your attitude be that of like a humble, like trying to learn.
Yeah.
So like, because I think one of the benefits of doing tutorials, like making the tutorials, is, and I've said this exactly, like, okay, I'm gonna make some tutorials, and I think that they're gonna be good because I have some knowledge, and then some people in the comments who have more knowledge than me might help me out, and then I become smarter.
Yeah.
So like I'm going in with that attitude of like, what else can I learn in this situation?
Yeah.
And like again, like because even if I say something that I know that I think to be true, because maybe I'm wrong, right? Don't dig in.
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
I think
Don't try to defend it.
Yeah. Oh, really? Is that not? Am I wrong? Okay. Oh, okay. Let's explore that. Maybe I didn't know that. So, hey guys, I found out about this new sort. Like, oh, we need to sort this. I found out about this new sort. I heard the bubble sort is pretty good, and maybe people are going to get some chuckles out of that. Are you serious?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like the only sort I know. But like, it's this nice, simple. It is simple to write. Like, yeah. Like, okay, it's just this really simple to write sorting algorithm, and it's like, and everyone's like, oh, well, that's stupid or whatever. Oh, really? Is there better sorts?
Yeah.
Right? Instead of defending yourself, no, bubble sort is definitely the best. Again, trade-offs.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. If you have 2 pieces of data, then
Or if you have 10 or 100, it's not going to be bad.
Yeah.
If you absolutely need to write your own sort in like 10 minutes, that's probably the one that you're gonna go to.
it does just make me think, like, with Jocko's example, like, what if you did have some junior developer come up to you and be like, Matt, the bubble sort is the best. If you're doing 1,000,000 pieces of data, you need to use the bubble sort.
I can't remember the exact situation, but my buddy did have that. And like,
man.
I don't remember what it was. It was related to, the problem is I don't know it exactly, like Redux. Maybe you know what Redux is.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like
a storage thing for React.
Yeah. So something like that. So they were dealing with some problem at his work. He doesn't work on web stuff. He's like an iOS dev as well. And he was, they're working on it. They're trying to solve some problem. And then this, like, a junior dev comes up. He's like, hey, I think I know how to solve it. Redux. and like, he's like just generating the idea. And so my buddy didn't know what that was. So he went and he's like, okay, well, let me look into that. So he looked into it, just the concept of it, right? It's like, okay, well, I guess we need some storage system or whatever. And so, and he was saying like, okay, I know why he might think that, but that's not the problem that we're trying to solve. It doesn't solve that. I guess there was more layers, and I don't know the specifics, but there's more layers to the problem. So that didn't solve the problem. And so so he explained it to the junior dev, and then the guy just kind of came back again. He's like, no.
I didn't even really laugh, just because it was
Just
probably the
way
wrong
he said
thing.
it.
Well, yeah, it's just like, yeah, that's how you solve your problem. Redux.
Yeah, drop the mic.
That's it.
And then I guess he did that 2 or 3 more times. And my buddy, who was like he was a team lead for like the infrastructure or something like that. So he's like a knowledgeable guy. And so he was just like, yeah, okay, well, we looked into it, but that, like, we're not just trying to save data. Like, there's some additional problem that we're trying to solve. So it's like that concept doesn't solve the problem. Like, we need to go deeper than that.
You're right.
And but the guy the problem is he felt like the junior dev didn't understand the deeper problem.
Right.
So he's like, Redux. Why doesn't anybody listen to me?
Yeah, that's how you solve it. Just put that in, and your problem goes away.
And then,
you just add Redux.
I did a tutorial.
The problem is, like, I'm laughing, but I think I've been in that situation before. And again, like, I have dealt with imposter syndrome because of this, where I will go into a conversation. I mean, if you work with somebody for more than a month, more than a week, they're going to get a good gauge of your skill. And yeah, I guess when you come into a conversation, you just want to dig your heels in and defend what you said and try to sound smart. And I guess it's stupid because I think maybe whenever I did it, I think you're hoping to hit the lottery and you're hoping to say the thing that everybody's going to think is super intelligent.
Oh, he's so smart.
Yeah. Oh, he's so smart. That is what's going to fix our problem. This guy that's only been doing this for stupid alarm. Yeah, no, like this guy that has been doing this for all of a month is going to know what needs to solve our problem. But yeah, I don't know. But again, that goes back to like before you say something, just make sure that you're certain of what you say because people are going to figure out what your thing is. The other point that I want to make is I think one thing that causes imposter syndrome to happen is when people don't do enough like peer review of their code. Like I think that you need to go have somebody look at your stuff more often because if somebody constantly has eyes on your code, there's no way you're going to develop that imposter syndrome because you're going to know that somebody out there knows your actual skill level, somebody more talented than you. Because I think the thing is that a lot of times developers write code in private repos and don't show anybody and they probably don't finish the projects or whatever. And you know what you're capable of. You know it's in those private repos, but nobody else does. And so, yeah, I mean, like imposter syndrome is literally the difference between your actual skill level and what you're representing to people. Probably. Like, I don't think that if you're honest with yourself about your actual skill level and you're honest with other people about your other skill level, I don't think that syndrome can come. But I just think people are trying to portray themselves as being, I mean, it's natural. Like
actually we have something on the whiteboard at work for like our code team, like our tech team core values. It says don't tell us you're a good developer. Show us. So, or like, I think another way of writing the code doesn't lie.
It's something like that.
Something like that.
And that's the thing. Like I don't think that at the company that we're at, we don't really ever try to hide anything. Like we're always looking at each other's code. I'm the first to like, if I were to sit here and say that like, oh, I'm super proud of the way that like some of these classes are written, I'm lying to you and I'm lying to myself and I'm eventually going to, but like at this point, I don't feel like I have to do that anymore because like I said, you and I can go look at some code that I wrote and I can say, Matt, this is not nearly as testable as what you wrote. And I can talk about the code that I wrote and it's the subjective decisions that I make, but we can still talk about the truth in it. The truth is that it's not as testable as I want it to be. The truth is that this aspect of it was good. You and I just had a situation yesterday where we had to change something related to UTMs and deep links or whatever. And the truth was that based on my approach, it was way easier to solve that same problem. And usually, just because you write less code doesn't mean that it's better. So I'm going to preface by saying that, which is kind of the whole point of this conversation. But more often than not, when we're writing some new thing in both iOS and Android, it takes less code to get it done in iOS. And because you write Android, I write iOS most of the time. And there's a combination of reasons for that. One reason is that my code has historically been less testable than what you wrote. So that's one part, but I don't think that's it. I think that there were some design decisions that we could talk about objectively and say that was a better decision based on this project. Also, you have a history of writing like game engines and stuff like that, which is kind of I haven't been.
Different.
It is different, and I've never seen that. I've never really been exposed to that, so I don't know. Like none of that is influencing the decisions that I make in the mobile app. Again, not saying that I make them right. I've definitely made a bunch of bad decisions, but everything that I know has been web development and iOS development or mobile development. So that's what's influencing my decisions, and it's a possibility that having not been influenced by other things, that some decisions that I made were better because they were based off of other projects. Whatever. So, anyways, the point that I'm trying to make is, neither one of us wrote perfect code, but we can have a conversation about it and live in complete truth about it and not say anything that's a lie, not say anything that's egotistical. Just because it's not perfect doesn't mean we can't be honest about it. You know what I mean?
And I think, like you said a couple of different things, like you were saying the gap between where you think or know you are and where other people are. And you also said you don't feel like, I forget exactly what you said, but now you don't feel like you need to prove yourself. And I think one of the reasons why and this goes back to something else that you said before. It's putting yourself out there. So I think the way to cure imposter syndrome, or at least like minimize it, is to put yourself out there, right? Again, and then be humble about the results. So I think one of the reasons that we feel more confident now at this job is because we have written a lot of code, but also good developers have seen the code. We criticize each other or ourselves like humbly, but it's still been a successful project,
Yeah.
right? Like the app has made a lot of money. We have a whole bunch of downloads.
Yeah.
It's doing what it needs to be doing, and we know the direction that we want to go with it. Okay, yeah, like these things aren't perfect. That's definitely true. But the fact is, it's not just my eyes on the project, like my eyes only. And so, it is living truth. You come in and you look at it, and you go, yeah, this takes me a lot longer to write, and I go, yeah, that could be better.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but with that comes confidence.
Mhm.
I think so. Like, okay, somebody like when developers that are good and that you respect have looked at your code, and if they're giving suggestions, maybe take those suggestions and learn from it, right?
Yeah.
Or at least discuss the trade-offs. Then again, you get smarter, and then also I think you gain confidence. Like I think that's where the confidence would come from, not necessarily fake it until you make it. Which I don't know if we could talk about that. Like I don't know if I ever actually do that, but like maybe to a certain extent you could go that way, but like you're no longer faking it at that point. Like the code doesn't lie.
Yeah. And how long can that even last? Like fake it till you make it. If somebody is doing that, it's not going to last for, especially in a super skilled.
It lasts until you make it.
Yeah,
Obviously.
that's true. Or you don't make it.
Or you don't make it. Yeah.
The other thing that this project did for us was give us exposure to a bunch of like APIs that we didn't have exposure to before, which also helps with confidence. Like one of them is Apple Pay.
Yeah, I never did that before.
Yeah, not in-app purchases. I had been able to do that before.
I never did either of those.
But I hadn't done Apple Pay. So either way, that's cool because then you get exposure to. I mean, we just saw an opportunity. Hey, we can use this new technology. It's an opportunity for us to learn it. Mm-hmm. It's an opportunity for us to get more confident with this platform. And not only that, but one thing that I like about what we did is I think we made it a point to learn, like with Apple Pay, for example, not just how this interfaces with the front end, but also how does this interface with the back end.
Yeah.
And now we have a good understanding of how that works. Maybe there's people that know better ways to do it, but like the fact is we can now jump into a conversation and understand what's going on. We can talk about it.
Yeah.
And still be objective about the way that we implemented it. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's not perfect. It's the first implementation that both of us have done.
Yeah.
It was based on quite a bit of research, but still, it's the first implementation. We've said many, many times, if we were to go, this is going to segue into what the other thing that we want to talk about, but the reality is that if we were to write this again or if we were to refactor it, we're going to do it differently, knowing what we know now. But we know enough to have a conversation, and we know enough to know a better way to do it. So that kind of segues into refactoring, which is kind of something else that we wanted to talk about. And we'll circle back. Okay, actually, real quick, before we do jump into refactoring, though, you had just said something about putting yourself out there. And in the beginning, I had made some open-ended statement about how putting yourself out there, I think tying 2 points together, I was saying that a lot of developers want to put themselves out there, but I think, again, they're doing what I was saying that I was trying to do, which is hit the lottery, put myself out there, offer my suggestion, and it be the right suggestion. And I think that I was just going about it wrong. I think that, and a lot of other people do too, when you put yourself out there, don't put yourself out there and try to be right. Put yourself out there and just be wrong. Like, or
be okay with being wrong.
Be okay with being wrong, or you can avoid that altogether. You never really have to be wrong. You're only going to be wrong if you say something that you're uncertain of. Instead, go into a conversation and just be willing to learn. Just say, I just don't really understand this thing that you guys are talking about. And again, 9 times out of 10, somebody's going to help you, and then you're not going to have any imposter syndrome from that because you were genuine with that person.
So in that, you sent me an article about this, like the benefits of imposter syndrome. And it was about this dev who felt like he had a strong sense of imposter syndrome, and so all he kept doing was asking other devs for help, like not like help doing the work, but like suggestions on how to improve or what does this do or what does that do. So he asked he said he ended up asking a ton of questions, and over the years as he was working at this company, obviously like some people leave, new people come in, and he says he started realizing that people were coming to him to ask him questions, and so like kind of before he knew it, he was the one that people were asking questions to.
Yeah.
And so like I think that comes from being humble and being willing to learn. I think that's the key.
And having that like approachable, agreeable attitude, like I think that's a quality that comes from completely different philosophies and books, like even How to Win Friends and Influence People talks about that. But just being an agreeable person, being somebody that's approachable, that's going to pay off in the long run. And I think, again, this is like maybe the reverse thing is people say, like, why are senior developers agreeable and approachable? Why are approachable and agreeable people senior developers or just super skilled at what they do?
Of course, this isn't totally true, by the way. Like I have met
because there's super skilled people that are super egotistical.
Yeah, or there's senior developers, like senior at a company that are egotistical. I mean, there's egotistical people.
Would you say it's not an even split though? It's mostly people I would say that are agreeable and approachable.
I don't know. Our company's really cool.
That's true.
We have. I think we have a really good team, and so I can't say if it's an even split or not. I have worked with people that like had poor attitudes, maybe egotistical, but it wasn't like most of them were. And obviously, like the stories that you hear from other people or other companies, that doesn't say like they're talking about the one person that was a jerk, but yeah, that doesn't say that the other 7 or 10 or 100 were good or bad. So it's hard to get like the accurate number. So you absolutely could be right.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think for me, not even just at this job, maybe it's just my experience. Okay, maybe other people, I'd be curious to see what other people think. It just feels to me like maybe it's also not just other jobs. Maybe it's just the internet forums that I've seen people talk in. The people that at least claim to be senior developers seem super easy to talk to, really cool people. Maybe it's just it seems like a prerequisite to becoming a senior developer is passion for the skill, passion for the type of engineering that you're doing or whatever. Maybe it's not even engineering, maybe it's law or medicine or whatever, but a prerequisite to becoming really good at that is to be passionate about it. And I just seems to me, or at least I hope that if you're passionate, you're also like cool to talk to about it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, so I knew a guy, I'm thinking of a very specific person who the reason he was a senior developer was because he had been doing it for like 20 or 30 years. He was an older guy. Actually, now I'm thinking of 2 people at this company. But yeah, so like one guy, older guy, he didn't care to learn new stuff. He had actually built his own like side company as well, like early on, and he just maintained that. So like his resume seems really good. There was a bunch of gaps in his knowledge, and actually he was like once he learned that me and this other younger dev were like smart, not like geniuses, but like smart, he would listen to us. But like he did kind of walk around with like a bunch of swagger, and he was kind of a jerk to some other people or whatever. He was, he wasn't completely bad, but he did seem to have like a ton of ego because he wrote this successful thing, and that was also making him money. There was another guy at that same company who, again, it's like the same thing. He's just been doing it for like 30 years. He was a much older guy, and he maybe the problem is maybe people have been doing it wrong for 30 years or whatever, especially if you've only worked for smaller companies.
Yeah.
Like you're able to work incorrectly for such a long time, and like but you are that senior developer at that company, and so even when new people come in, if they don't stay long, they can't necessarily say like, hey, maybe there's better ways of doing it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I don't know.
I wonder if there's an evolutionary reason for why people are like that. There has to be.
Maybe, yeah.
Like if I'm the guy in my cave tribe that's like, I will destroy all other cavemen, whatever, and like people trust me whether or not I'm actually the most qualified to beat up the other caveman with my club. If I act like it, people will follow me and people will trust me and people will whatever. We're in kind of a different era though, and you kind of gotta. Seems like a lot of being a human these days is like deny or like
Well,
denying your instincts,
yeah.
denying your whatever, because we're kind of past that.
Well, you have to be careful because Jocko talks about this, and so does Jordan Peterson. Like the toughest, jerkiest monkey. Like you can't just be that tough, jerky monkey, right? And like whether you're bluffing or not. Because if I come up to you, if I'm the monkey, and I say, like, I'm the leader, or else I'm gonna kill you, right? Well, you might actually run into somebody who is like who will just kill you, right?
Yeah.
But then the other thing is, let's say you're not bluffing and you're just like that jerky monkey because you are like the toughest. The problem is that's still not a winning strategy because you might be the toughest single monkey, but two or three other monkeys can team up and kill you.
And also
Or,
one day you won't be.
and also, yeah, as you get older, or if you fight and then you're injured. So the winning strategy really for any leaders, and the reason they talk about it like monkey tribes is because it's like obviously humans do this too, but this actually does exist in the monkey tribes where it's like they will make peace offerings and like even like the tough alpha male still has like peace offerings and is like friendly to other like the other male like subordinates or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's proper leadership. Otherwise, monkeys are mean. They will tear you apart.
Yeah. Well, this isn't like a specific reference. Like, genuine, this isn't a specific reference to anybody in modern. I'm just talking generally, whatever. It seems like we haven't moved past the idea of electing like the seemingly strongest person physically. Maybe maybe there's sort of a shift, but like, I don't know. I just remember. Now I am talking about specific examples, but I just remember like back a few years ago, it was silly to me, but there was like this whole campaign against one of our presidents or whatever, and it was showing Putin on like a horse, and he was like, he's got like the 6-pack, and he's like riding a horse shirtless or whatever, and he just looks all ripped and shredded and whatever, and it's just like, is Putin maybe the most like intellectually capable? I don't know, but he certainly looks tough. And like the guy knows like mixed martial arts and this and that. So like, but it seems like just in the world we live in, we're still kind of doing that. We're still kind of electing people that are seemingly strong, whether or not they're actually the most intellectually capable. And I guess the roundabout point I'm trying to make is that this exists both in politics, but also in the workplace where like people are trying to come off as the most tough.
Yeah.
And whether that means physically or like I'm the best developer, even if you're not. And there's got to be like an evolutionary reason for that.
It does. It makes sense to me. I want to make sure that my leader or me as a like, but let's say, imagine if you have a leader and one seems really, really smart but spineless, right? Well, that doesn't help anybody.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it's good that they're smart. Like so they might have all the right answers, but then person X comes up and say, actually my idea is better, and they're afraid to push back on there.
Yeah.
And then person B comes up and says, oh, actually my idea is better. It's like, okay, person B, we'll use yours, right? And then now person A and person B are upset at each other, and like there's no leadership. So obviously you don't want to have a dumb person. You hope that they're knowledgeable, but they need to, like, I can understand a little bit of that strength of character or whatever at the very least, right? Where it's like, because the leader in the end, the leader is responsible. The leader is the one who makes the decisions and needs to be responsible. That's the same reason why nobody likes a boss who makes a decision, right, and then gets mad at the employees for executing that decision. That obviously that sounds like horrible. Like if there's like the leader is ultimately responsible, and we want leaders that are strong enough to understand that and take on that responsibility.
Okay, so playing devil's advocate, do you think you'd be a good leader?
Yeah.
I do too. I
Yeah.
think you'd be a great leader.
Yeah.
But I don't think you have that personality trait. I'm also not saying you're obviously not spineless. You know, you're willing to push back when you think something is right, but you're also just insanely agreeable.
So
you're very easy to work with.
This is exactly why I gave that hesitation. Depending on the role that I'm in, I don't like using the word passive. This goes back to like the conversation we were having before with like about you and Curtis and Jocko, right? If somebody has a different idea, and if I know it to be like 60% wrong, then that's when maybe there can be some pushback. But if it seems like it could work, like it's like 10% different than I would do it, or 20% or whatever, then I'm happy. As long as I think it'll still work, I'm happy to go along with that. Maybe I can learn a different way to do it, and if it still makes something succeed, that's fine. So maybe it's because I'm too passive, but also where it comes, or like again, like it depends on the role. Because I've never, when I was a teacher, I was in like a leadership role, so I would make, maybe I like, you obviously didn't meet me back then, but maybe I would make different decisions back then. Right now, as Android developer, and we have like, I'm not. I mean, I guess I'm the lead Android developer, but like obviously we have a whole bigger company. So it's like when some conflicts arise, I'm also just happy to say, like, okay, let's go ahead and try it that way. Here's kind of what I think, and I'll push back. If I was responsible for some project deadline coming out, this is where my personality would turn, and it's like, if I am the one who's ultimately responsible, I'm going to make sure that thing happens, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Right. And I think we did that on one of those move launches. Like, we did it internally, not because we were the leaders, but we said this thing needs to get done, and we all stepped up and just did it.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And so, like, and the decision wasn't necessarily forcing anybody else to do it. Although I know me and you talked with another employee, we were doing it separately. Like, hey, man, you got to make sure that you get your work done too. Are you willing to help? Because if, like, we don't know where you're at, so we don't know if we can, like, count on your work right now. If not, just let us know, and then we'll get that done. So, but like, because at that point, all of us stepped up. Like the three people who were there that first day, and obviously more, but like we stepped up and decided to take responsibility of that.
Yeah.
And the whole point was getting it done. The responsibility wasn't like, it wasn't about listening or who's right or who's wrong. It was like, okay, well, we need to get this done.
Yeah, I think, okay, so 2 points on this. Number one, I think what you're talking about is having a leader that's not cowardly.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that's really important. And there's a way to not be cowardly without being like the physically toughest or whatever that means. You know, this is obviously like what, like Hitler, like killed himself in the end in a cave somewhere. Like that was like, you're a coward. Like you didn't face your, and like there's countless leaders throughout history that like weren't willing to go into battle with. This is actually a scene in Game of Thrones, right? Where, like Ramsay Bolton, he like runs away or whatever while all of his men go like fight this war that he's not willing to go fight. And like, you're a coward. Like obviously he's a bad leader. They're making a point cinematically, whatever. So what you're talking about is that where when that happened, we kind of stepped up to the plate and we're like, we're willing to go to war or whatever that means for, and in this case, it meant literally getting 4 hours of sleep over a 72-hour period, trying to get this thing done. And so hopefully people will look back and say like, dang, these guys really stepped up to the plate. They were willing to help when we needed it most, whatever. So that's my first thing. The second thing is I'm curious what you think about me, because I feel like I exhibit a trait that my dad had that is good and bad. So my dad was a military officer. He was also in the Navy. I think he ended up carrying do you know what rank Jocko was in the end? Probably doesn't matter.
Lieutenant commander, I believe.
Was he a lieutenant commander?
I believe so, yeah.
I think Jocko made it to commander.
When he was, maybe, yeah, I'm not sure. I hear him talking about when he was, at the end, I don't know, because like in Extreme Ownership, he talks about when he was in Task Unit Bruiser. At that point, he was lieutenant commander, but he was obviously in the military
for a lot
after.
Longer. Yeah, so commander is the equivalent of a lieutenant colonel in the other branches, and I'm pretty sure that's what Jocko made it to. Anyways, that's what my dad was as well, just for reference. Doesn't really matter. My dad also made it to commander in the Navy. He wasn't a SEAL, though, but he was in the Marine Corps first, then went to Navy. Really doesn't matter. He was a fantastic officer, though. My dad is a humble guy. He will listen. He said that was one thing that his dad taught him going into the military, was not to be that second lieutenant that doesn't listen to the grunts and whatever. Yeah. So he was good. But my dad, the thing that's both good and bad about his personality and mine is that he's just a decision maker. He can't stand like uncertainty in a group. And so it's like, if there's any question about what's going to happen next, he's just like, this is what we're doing. And I'm willing to put my name on it. I'm willing to move forward. And you see me do that all the time. I do not always make the right decision. I just can't stand uncertainty. Like, let's just move. Let's move on this thing.
And Jocko does talk about this as well. He says default aggressive. And like aggressive doesn't mean like being aggressive with people, but it's like, make that decision. You don't just necessarily want to be passive. And I I think that I try to be that same way. Okay, here's the way I'm going, right? And then like I'm willing to listen to other people. Okay, is there more input? Okay, then we can adjust. But I agree that it's better to make this decision is whatever it is. Okay, this is what we're doing. Because of course, if we have infinite time, we could keep studying and lollygagging. That was my dad's word, lollygagging or whatever, just like wasting time twiddling our thumbs. Or we can get something going, which is really that's the whole point of agile. Like let's make a decision. Let's see the small result, and then let's iterate on that.
Yeah, I mean, in an agile environment, there's no time for uncertainty. Like we're constantly pivoting, and we're supposed to be moving constantly. So like I guess that's the thing. People talk about this. It's like the bane of the company existence or whatever, is that like there's all these meetings that like nobody wants to be in. They're a waste of time. And I think when somebody says a meeting is, quote, waste of time, it's because you didn't walk away from that with a game plan or a shift in direction.
An action item or whatever.
No action item. And so somebody has to bear that responsibility of like, whether or not I'm right, we're moving on this thing. I'm tired of meeting and not having any decisions made. This is what we're going to do. We're moving on it. And I'm willing to put my name on that.
And so, I think that so having a leader that isn't cowardly, again, I don't think they need to be physically strong, but like having a leader that isn't cowardly and is willing to make the decision and stand by that decision. I think those are pretty important qualities.
And also not blame the members of the team.
Exactly.
That's the whole premise of extreme ownership.
I made the decision. I'm the leader. The responsibility was mine.
Right. Yeah, that's the whole beginning of extreme ownership.
That's in a
exactly,
nutshell.
So I guess, the thing is, I don't know what the evolutionary reason is for wanting to come off as more talented than you are, but I think the reality is that the modern day leader needs to be authentic and genuine. They need to be not cowardly and willing to go to war with their people. They're not going to blame their people, and they're going to be a decision maker. Those are like the 5 attributes of a modern day leader. But I mean, obviously there's a bunch of leaders. When people talk about leaders that they hate, it's always like, well, I know more than this guy. This guy's an idiot. Like maybe you're right. Maybe that's fair. But it's really annoying when you have somebody, especially above you, that you know you're more talented than, but that person just, like, you do actually know you're more talented than this person, but they're not. What am I trying to say? You know you're more talented than them, but they think they're more talented than you, but they don't know. I actually wonder, I'm sure Jocko's responded to that question before. Like, what happens when you have somebody above you that thinks they know more than you, but they don't?
I mean, at a certain point, you just have to live with it. Because the fact is, it's not the leader's job to know more.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the president doesn't know more than Fauci, for example, right now. Right? Like,
I think that shows crazy confidence in a person when they can lean on other people that know more than them, and they can just say like, "Hey, look, I'm confident in my ability to be a leader in whatever aspect, whether I'm the president of the United States, whatever. As the president, I'm not supposed to understand the ins and outs of the medical side of coronavirus."
Yeah,
so
and this is going to be true even at our work. Who's the biggest expert at work on iOS?
You or me?
Yeah, well, I would say you. Yeah.
I have to be humble there.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. Right? Like, and that's the thing is, like, you know more than the VP of engineering about iOS. Definitely.
For sure.
Definitely, right? You know more about iOS than our CTO or our CEO. Yes, of course. Like, these are just facts. Like, so it's like the leader doesn't always know more about a particular subject. That's why they hired you. Yeah. And so,
but we have good leaders, because our VP of engineering would never act like he knows more.
And that's fair. And so, so I think that's the difference is, I lost my train of thought. But yeah, it's like a leader doesn't always have to know more. Hopefully they're not throwing things they're not throwing things out there acting like they know more. Obviously, if our CTO acted like he knew more about the technical aspects of iOS, he would look foolish.
Right.
If he makes the decision about the direction of our iOS app, that's fine. It's his app.
Yeah, we're very lucky to have a really cool guy in that position, and I think in that way, in a lot of ways, he's a fantastic leader, because he's all of these things. Like, he's definitely not cowardly. He's willing to go. I'm trying to remember all the things that I just said. He's not cowardly. He's willing to go to war. He's willing to I mean, he puts in more hours than anybody, for sure. what was the other things that I said? He's definitely knowledgeable about just general programming and his domain. I don't know. I can't remember all the 5 things that I just said. We've had so many distractions, or my phone has just been going off the hook during this episode. Anyways, we're kind of hitting that end mark. Anyways, though, we're kind of at about an hour. I don't know. I just think for key takeaways from this one, it's just if you want to be in a leadership position, please be knowledgeable before you do that, but also exhibit all of those traits that we talked about. The core thing that we talked about during this episode is obviously imposter syndrome. And in my opinion, the key takeaway is to avoid that, be a genuine person, be authentic. Don't try to act like you know more than you do. In my opinion, this is just a piece of advice. Do peer review all the time.
Yeah.
Seriously. Like if somebody's looking at your I think the least confident that I've ever been was when nobody was really looking at my code.
Yeah. I believe that.
When you have people looking at it and you're willing to accept the criticism that they give you, that's when you're really going to grow.
Yeah.
So, anyway, any key takeaways from you?
No, I mean that's it. Be humble, be willing to learn. I think that's for both of them. For imposter syndrome, dealing with that, and then being a leader. Be humble, be willing to learn.
Agreed. Episode 18.
Cool.
In the books.
In the books.
And I was talking 3 days ago, Simon, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna have him on the next one. So
oh, great. Oh, that's gonna be cool.
That's gonna be awesome.
Cool.
Episode 18, everybody, and we'll see y'all next week.